are live from Broker Carrier Summit, Indianapolis, 2025. And I just lost audio. So, yeah, it's live. It's live. We're definitely live. So, live from Broker Carrier Summit. Man, everything keeps coming unplugged around me. So I keep clicking out. So I don't know. This weird setup. So thanks, Charles. So live 2025 Broker Carrier Summit. We're here with a great panel today. We have Ken Riddle from the director of the FMCSA. We have Danielle Spinelli with Descartes, and we have Dale Prax. So the famous and infamous Dale Prax.
Well, hey, I'm here with the Fraud Girl, though, so that's cool.
Fraud Girl, yeah, absolutely. So we
Today
got
should have been the day I wore my shirt.
Yeah, well, you have that larger shirt. We need to get you more shirts so you can just run it the whole conference.
Wear it every day.
So that's the brand.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been handing out the picture to a couple of people who say they're going to run with it.
Oh, yes, let's go.
Absolutely. So, so today we're going to talk about fraud. We're going to talk about what the FMCSA is up to it. Dale, you've worked out some questions here. But first, let's start out with Broker Carrier Summit, how the summit's going for you all. And Ken, you've been here today, or you were here yesterday as well?
Yesterday and today.
Yesterday. So how? And this is your second summit, right? You were in Fort Worth as well. I remember seeing you there. So.
Correct.
So how has the summit been for you this last couple of days?
Fantastic. It's a venue in which it helps me get the word out, helps FMCSA get the word out about the latest updates that we have on registration, the latest updates we have on fraud mitigation. And it's also an opportunity for me to get feedback. I'm always approached after a presentation and when I'm wandering around the summit with a lot of questions and concerns, recommendations. And those are helpful because we listen and we take that back. And oftentimes it'll help us make changes to what we're doing.
No, I appreciate that. And that forum, I mean, the FMCSA, I was at Matt's as well, but being able to come out and get that feedback and immerse yourself in the industry, I think is important. And that constructive feedback, I think, is important. And I think this particular crew here, the 550, 600 people here at Broker Carrier Summit has a tendency to give really good constructive feedback.
And they're not shy.
Right. Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. Last night I had a gentleman come up and he just jumped right in. He absolutely was not shy. He was hitting every industry topic on the planet. And I was a little worn out, so I was answering them, but I was like, boy, it was a long. I mean, she picked up on me on the end of the day. I think I was pretty well done by the end of last night. So
it's typically how I am whenever I get home. I'm like, I don't want to talk to anybody because my social battery is drained.
Right.
But no, that I like with the whole thing here. This whole week has been great networking. I mean, really, like I said, my social battery is draining, but that's because I've had such great conversations.
You have a massive social battery too. That's more so than right? Most people. So yeah, how was the summit going for you guys beyond that? And Dale, how about yourself?
Well, I think that the summit is probably, and I go to a lot of conferences and trade shows, but what I like best about the summit, it's not a bunch of people selling stuff in booths. We're actually talking about real issues. And I think the most important part is that when someone like Ken Riddle gets up on the stage talking to somebody, we got both sides hearing it at the same time. So they can take that information. So it's not like at some trade shows where just brokers there, well, they're maybe slighted against the carriers or the other way. This is just everybody in this industry hearing the same message. And I think that's super important because now you can talk better about it. Well, I heard it this way, I heard it that way. We're hearing it right from the horse's mouth on the stage together.
Perfect. No, I think that sums it up great. So we have a laundry list of questions for Ken. And we have 40 minutes of Ken's time left here today.
We don't have to get to all the
I'm going to get to all of them, brother. No, I won't. We'll kind of selectively go through them and see where we make out. But I'm going to start out with question number 1, which is, what is the FMCSA doing to prevent the fraudulent transfer or sale of MC numbers without the full legal sale of a business?
That's a tough one. And I got to start out by saying that FMCSA does not regulate the sale of assets.
Right.
And so we can't control of whether an MC number is sold or whether a business is sold, there's a correct way and a wrong way to do it. Oftentimes, the buyer, when they buy an MC number, buys the identity basically of the individual. They buy the MC number, they buy the email address, they buy the phone number,
Right.
they buy everything, and they assume the identity of the seller, the registrant, the true registrant. That's very hard to stop because we don't know who they are. We don't know that they've assumed the identity of someone else. The sale of an MC number in and of itself is not illegal. And
it has to be with the trucks, right? Isn't
Yeah.
it?
Well,
Yeah.
I think that, Ken and I have had this conversation a little bit. And we're working with their registration, the fraud registration unit. And with my carrier portal and FreightValidate, I'm not just throwing in a plug, but I'm just saying what we're doing to fix things. We know that if somebody changes some information, because usually when they buy an MC number, they're going to change something because it has to do with the bank, right? The bank needs to know who they are. So our system, we developed something called Safer Lock that if somebody changes anything as far as contact information, we automatically send them an email with 3 choices. Was this approved by you? Was this not approved by you? Or did you sell your MC as part of this change? And just we were just talking about this right before we came on. Just last week, we sent over 3 that were because of a sale. We got a copy of the bill of sale. We found out that it was a fraudulent sale because the person didn't buy this as part of the whole company, including the equity, the stock, and all the assets of the company. The actual company bought it just as the MC, which is what they do. Ken's crew in the fraud registration department was able to shut that authority off because the legality part fits in that he didn't apply for a new DOT number, which is required. So we were able to not only let that guy that got his $30,000 keep it in one case, he also we shut down that carrier within 6 hours of him buying that MC number. So that's a big hats off to Ken and his crew up there because they're listening to what we're sending them and fixing it. I mean, our average wait time right now for his crew fixing, say, an unauthorized change of address or an unauthorized email address, they'll call the old company and verify it. They're closing down in 11 to 22 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's not happening. That
great.
hasn't
That's
happened in ages.
I was going to say that's a big change.
Yeah. We couldn't do that before because we didn't have a registration fraud team.
Right.
And the leadership of FMCSA saw fit that we needed a registration fraud team solely focused on the registration.
Right.
And number one, assisting victims of fraud.
No, that's a good point. And I think another thing that FMCSA could do, just as a, suggestion, is almost having like a information where, because I think a lot of carriers don't realize that what is legal and what's not. Like nobody wants to read a legal document. Like I don't want that. I just want like a quick summary. You tell me what I can and cannot do. So almost like a cute little, tidbit of like, hey, if you're getting approached by this, because some carriers don't know that it's going to be a fraudulent guy, and they don't understand that, I'm actually the part of the problem. They don't want to be like that, but they want to sell. They want to get out of the business. That's fine, but learn what to look for. And then of course, like having you coming out here and talking about this and then educating is huge, but almost having like a little, cliff note.
Yeah. And to Dale's point, if they do try to go in and change something after they've purchased the MC number, that's why I'm so anxious for the new registration system.
Yeah.
Because they'll have to go through the identity verification and they won't pass.
Right.
Yeah, that's going to be great.
Yeah.
Perfect. So how do you reconcile all your data across all the platforms, Ken? There's a variety of different systems that you work with. So how does the FMCSA ensure that all data levels across all systems?
It's a challenge.
Yeah, I'm sure.
We do have multiple systems, and they're all old, and I'm talking really old, and not all of them play well together, meaning they don't communicate with each other as well. And so we will have instances where, let's say, the same carrier's data is different in one system versus another with FMCSA. We're going to fix that with the new system because we're going to one database.
Oh, that's nice.
One enterprise database. All systems will pull from that database. So it'll be impossible to have conflicting information across systems. And we've already built that database, and we've already built the migration effort to go from our existing databases over to the new database, which is the long pole in the tent. It was huge.
Oh, I'm sure.
But we've got that architect done so that when we finish the new system, we can migrate all the data to the new system.
That kind of ties into one of the questions we had on LinkedIn to ask at this panel was about, since 1996, I think we've talked about eliminating MC numbers and going strictly to the DOT number. And for obvious reasons, that hasn't happened yet. But when the real push came about 2 or 3 years ago, when we said, I think the FMCSA announced they're going to do it like October of 2025. And so just recently, some of the freight news outlets have posted that, hey, get ready, October 25, this is going to happen. We've had several conversations about why that we're not ready for that. Number one is whenever someone's going to accept or tender a load, the first question asked is, what's your MC number?
Yeah.
A lot of TMS systems don't have it in there. The other part is, I think that you just brought up is a very valid reason why not to do it yet. In our research, we found that there are over 127,000 companies who have an inactive or revoked MC number, but have an active DOT number. That's where you talked about those two systems don't talk together to other. Now, could someone say, well, they could be intrastate carriers? Well, I don't think 127,000 are. And even worse, 66,000 of those are freight brokers. Have never seen an intrastate freight broker, especially 66,000 of them.
So do you imagine that Dale puts together flashcards and sits there and just rattles off these numbers at
It's
night?
insane. I know. How does he remember all that?
He is well versed,
yeah,
and he asks a lot of tough questions.
Yeah, he does. Absolutely. And I imagine that night he's just sitting there ripping through this stack of flashcards going boom, boom, boom. So,
yeah, he knows the numbers really well.
Yeah, ask me any regulation about affiliation or about principal place of business, I'll probably be able to tell you.
Yeah, fair enough. And if anyone watching has any questions for Ken, Dale, or Danielle, feel free to put them in the comments, and we'll do our best to answer them. Is the FMCSA doing or planning any identity verification for company owners going forward?
Yeah, not only are we planning it, we've implemented it for all new applicants. If you're brand new to the industry, coming into FMCSA for registration for the first time, you now have to go through identity verification. We're using a company called IDEMIA.
Yep.
IDEMIA. They're the same company that provides security identity verification at all of our TSA checkpoints, at all of our airports and ports of entry. So it's a well-known company. But if you're coming in as a new registrant, you're going to go through identity verification before we'll give you registration. And we have quite a few that can't pass that, which means that we're protecting the front door now. So we've closed the front door, we're protecting it, we're screening who's coming in. Next will be to clean house with the new registration system.
Oh, what I love about that too is I think there's a lot of people carrier would be brand new, and you have like, oh, I'm not, unless they're 30 or 90 days in, that's the only time I'm going to work with them. Well, that doesn't mean they're good or bad. Like they don't change who they are in 90 days. So I think fixing that part of it, that can take that fear out of it, and then let's like actually vet a carrier correctly and not just these superstitious things that don't even make sense. So I think that's a great point.
Yeah, and I know, Ken, you can't really opine on public opinion or what the government may or may not do or what the government should do, but I think that I speak for a lot of people that say that I think the IDEMA facial recognition is a very good idea. I think it's a good start. Like in everything we do in fighting fraud, everything starts somewhere. So, but my issue, I think, with IDEMIA is that a person could very easily be in Pakistan and have a driver's license that he got from before. So we're identifying the person that's in front of it, but not really identifying where they are or if they're behind the organization. And you and I have kind of talked about this, and of course, I'm not expecting you to opine on it, but I think that we could fix a lot of fraud, and I think that people should get behind this, is requiring a TWIC card, a Transportation Workers Identification Credential, which requires be in person, just like 600,000 drivers do every single year. Be in person, fingerprints, facial recognition, background check. That would fix a lot of fraud. If 600,000 companies do it every single year, drivers do it every single year, why couldn't the 60,000 or so that apply every year, a 10% increase, and make it really, that is a very good way to identify who the person is and who's behind the company. And the other thing, last thing is that has to be updated every 5 years. A TWIC card has to be renewed every 5 years. So should your authority. There's guys that have authority for 30 years, and we don't know how many times that's been sold.
I'm imagining, Ken, that's not the first time you've heard that from Dale.
It's not. And I'll just comment and say that if it's required, we will implement it.
Yeah, fair enough. That's more of a legislation thing first, right? Yeah.
Ken always says, no pun intended, or this is a cliche, but it takes an act of Congress.
Yeah, fair enough. Literally. Yeah. I'm there with you. It sounds like a good idea. We need to evolve with the times. which means putting those layers into place. And a lot of these things, I've been in this industry 3 decades, and we still have a lot of the same processes in place that we had 3 decades ago. And in a lot of places we've advanced, but in other places, we're still doing the same thing that we did 30 years ago. In some places worse.
Right. And even them just implementing the one system for everything. It's like, what a
game changer.
Yeah, game changer that is.
Right.
They're coming a long ways.
But but going back to what we've done 30 years ago and everything, I think the best thing that we've done as far as going back 30 years, back in the 40s and 50s, facial recognition was how you got to know each other and trust each other, right? Then it went to fingerprints. Then it went to PIN numbers. And then it came back to facial recognition. But now I'm glad it's back to the Broker Carrier Summit, which is the original, facial recognition, verification, and trust.
Yeah, because they're not meeting up at truck stops anymore.
Right.
They're meeting up at stuff like this. Yeah.
Most truck stops don't even have a sit-down place for a driver to eat anymore.
They don't want you doing. I mean, you go back to trip leasing, right? You get the broker to go out to the truck stop, and they've got their sheets, and they're handing it out to the carriers and working their deals. You can't do that anymore at a truck stop. They don't let you. So they don't want that to happen. Actually, you go out to even talk to drivers at truck stops, and you're probably getting kicked out pretty quick. So if you don't have a permission at least. So spinning over to kind of the next line of question that pops up to me here is, so we talked about identity verification, but if I'm a company and I want to make a change in any portal within the FMCSA or within the portal, how do you know that it's actually me? What are you, or what is the FMCSA doing to ensure that it's actually a company owner or an authorized party to making that change?
Yeah, that's the next step. That's the new system. Identity verification will be part of the new system, and not only will it verify your identity, it's going to make sure you're the actual registrant documented in our system before allowing you to make any changes. So it's going to verify, check the system and say, okay, this is who is allowed to make changes, and then verify your identity that you're that person. And there's one other check I want to mention. It's one thing to verify your identity when you're registering new, but it's another thing whether you should be registering that company.
Right. You're the right person.
You're the right person. So we want to do a business verification check. And we're in the process of contracting for that. And what that'll look like is we'll contract with an organization that can help us check maybe State Department articles of incorporation, state licensing agencies, so that we can tie your name to that business before we allow you to register.
I was just going to ask you if that's coming, because to me, like I know that's the big thing that FreightValidate does for us is they check the business license to see who's registered, what, and that type of thing. Because that's really like they'll always say that's how they set up a bank account. That's how you're tracking money. I think that's huge. So that's cool. And it really makes sense that you can pull all that. Like to me, as like a American, I'm like, you guys are the government. You have all this stuff. So just pull it all together. I don't get it.
Yeah,
so I love that
wish
you're
it were
working
that
on it.
easy.
I know, right? I know.
There is one gap in that, and I'm looking for help, and that's sole proprietors. Yeah, I'm told that sole proprietors don't always have to register with their state, don't have to register with Department of State, Articles of Incorporation. So how do we check them? I think, though, identity verification may be enough because they are the person, they are the company. That's why they're sole proprietor. Mm-hmm. So maybe the identity check is far enough for that.
Yeah, a TWIC would help with that too. But I think that another way that I think that we could help things is the FinCEN, the BOI, through the transportation, the Treasury Department. Every company is required to prove who they are, put their articles of incorporation in there, all those kind of things. So I think that maybe the Transportation Department needs to talk to the Treasury Department and say, let's tie these two together, because if we're doing all this work to verify with 100% certainty who this guy and who owns the company and his articles of incorporation and all those kind of things, we should be able to tie those two together, since the Treasury Department's already gathering that information by law. They have, I mean, it's been gone through the highest court now, is that they've turned it back on.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah. So we have a couple questions. We have, let's see, Christopher Woods, and I'm reading from a distance. How does FMCSA identify and investigate suspicious registrations or activity? And what is the FMCSA doing to get ahead of the fraudsters? Any thoughts on that?
So most of the time when we learn of a bad actor, let's say, that has registration in our system, we learn it from the public. We learn it from industry. or a third party, and then we investigate it. Right now, with our legacy system, there's no algorithm that goes through and checks the validity of everybody already in it. The new system is going to help us with that. The new system, of course, is going to keep them from getting in the first place, we hope. But really, most of the time, it's someone bringing it to our attention that allows us to investigate.
So a question on that. What if it is somebody where, because I guess people see like freight card reports and they write whatever just because they get mad, and then they report whatever, trying to shut somebody back down because they overcharged or, whatever. So let's say the investigation does happen. Let's say it really wasn't like they shouldn't have been shut down. Is there going to be like a step in that case? Like, hey, if I show up to blah, blah office and I talk to them about this, like, have you guys thought that whole process through yet or not there yet?
Nothing where you'd show up in person.
Gotcha.
But there's got to be due process and everything that we do.
Sure.
And that's why it's, we've got to have a lot of evidence to show if someone's conducting fraudulent activities.
Yeah.
And then we've got, limited authorities on what we can do about it, especially the Office of Registration. Our authorities lie upon entry. Yeah. Once you already have the registration, that moves to another office within FMCSA who has some authorities to take action.
Well, I think one thing that slows down the fraud is doing exactly what you're doing. We call it the Delta program. Don't even let them aboard. Because a lot of the guys that are good and pass all the things that disclose all their affiliations and do all the right things, they're not working out of a post office. They're generally good folks, right? So I think by closing that door in the first place, we're going to limit, but just by process, eliminate a lot of the fraudsters because they know I can't even get in to do it. So maybe they'll move to another industry until they find a way around it.
You guys did that, right? You guys made it where the virtual addresses, like you guys stopped that already.
Well, the virtual addresses are more difficult. We definitely stopped the PO boxes, the UPS boxes.
Sure. Gotcha.
But the virtual offices are a little more difficult. We use the United States Postal Service API to validate addresses. So if the post office says, yes, that's a valid address, it's deliverable, then we accept it.
And I think that you and I have talked about this too. It goes to general counsel, whoever's in general counsel that day, because lawyers all disagree. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a Supreme Court, right? So I think that regulation 390.5T CFR can be interpreted by two different people to mean two different things, because it talks about principal place of business if you have multiple locations. Then it says, show it up in 2 days. There are other parts of the regulation which aren't really regulations. They're guidance to the regulation or interpretation. So that can be really skewed. And I hope that with HR 8505 about that Maxine Eleanor Norton put into the Senate last year, on the House last year, to really tie down what is a PPOB. It was introduced in this Congress again in the 119th Congress. So I hope that comes to fruition, because if the FMCSA doesn't know what the regulation is or how to interpret it, how do 330,000 carriers know how to interpret it?
Now you just said PPOB. What does that do?
Principal place of business.
There you go. Okay.
I'm like, you got to dumb that down a lot for me over here. I don't know what you're saying.
Acronyms can be problems.
Yeah.
But just like that, like even me, I'm in the industry, or I'm in all the talks and stuff like that. But you got to dumb it down for me too. Imagine, a carrier that just started out and they don't know. So I think that's big. You got to make it where it's simple for them to understand. Anybody understand.
Yeah, and that's kind of funny. There's this investigative reporter down in Dallas, Texas, doing a series on freight fraud, and the reason she's doing it is, we all come to these conferences and talk about freight fraud. We are all on LinkedIn talking about freight fraud within our industry, but her take is that the person that's really hurt by freight fraud is the consumer at the cash register.
Oh, yeah.
Because transportation is 30 to 60% of every cost of goods that goes out there. So her plan is to get this out to the consumer who has a vote. So this is happening. What are you doing, Congress, to fix this? This is affecting me. And so we're doing I think a 6-part series on freight fraud. And not only the fraud part of it is that you have to be safe on the road too. A lot of times fraud ties right into safety, as you mentioned today on the stage, Ken. If a person gets frauded out of $2,500, he's got a choice to make. Do I feed my family or do I buy tires? Right. And we've got to really tie those things together.
Well, I had the California Highway Patrol Cargo Theft Task Force guys on my webinar last week, and they were talking about their key things that they look for with these fraudsters, because typically they really don't even have a CDL and they're just driving. They're all over the place. I mean, that's huge safety issues, and that's their biggest way that they catch a lot of the people that have the stolen freight already on them. So
we have a second question here, and I think some of it was partially addressed, but does FMCSA also or are you also going to use AI tools for verification moving forward?
I think eventually we will do that. There's already talk of AI, but I think that's going to be a future release. Initially, we're just looking at getting a functional system, more secure, more reliable, more stable on the street quickly. But AI is definitely not out of the question for a future release.
And you're using it kind of a little bit. I think facial recognition, verifying all those kind of things, that's AI coming in and trying to prevent things from happening. So I think to a degree it's starting, but it's going to get bigger as we see that this works well in this part, right? So it's going to get better on other things, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So what role do you see FMCSA playing or kind of expanding for public-private partnerships? So similar to working with FreightValidate, with My Carrier Portal, with Descartes, and kind of helping modernize the registration and vetting process.
Listen, that's the reason I come to venues like this, is to hear directly from the industry, and we'll listen to anybody. There are some more outspoken than others. Dale communicates with us regularly, and we listen. But it's all valuable information. Listen, we can't sit in a vacuum there in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
We got to get out. We got to talk to people. We got to hear their recommendations, hear their concerns, hear the issues, or we won't know what to fix. So we'll listen to anybody, any company, anytime.
Well, I even just think the updates that you guys are doing as far as the data that I collect on my end for my platform is having it one system. Right now we're pulling from everywhere. I mean, that is like our programmers are probably like, oh, thank God, now we have one spot to go to. So I think even just that updates. And then as you know, sometimes they'll, like a customer of ours or something, like, because we have the conflicting information from FMCSA, it's hard for us to, especially like automation wise, to get it to pull up, and then they'll be like, hey, this showed this and this showed. You're like, this is FMCSA, this ain't us.
I've got to give credit to our IT department.
Yeah.
That has this vision for the enterprise database that's coming to fruition.
Yeah.
Already mostly built. So there'll only be one source for all FMCSA systems.
I know. I'm very excited on the tech side. I'm very excited.
One of the things you brought up, Ken, on the stage, and we're talking about listening to industry, and there's a couple that come to my mind, and one is maybe self-serving to me. That you and I talked at MATS a year ago, and a lot of people think that when things happen within the government, it takes forever to happen, right? So we talked a year ago at MATS in April of 2024. And I brought to you a list of 2,500 companies that the FMCSA had put through that were working out of a post office box, UPS store, and all those kind of things. You took a handful of those back and you said, I promise to fix this. 8 months later, it was fixed. There hasn't been any company gone through it, because we have a robot to build it. That's how we got it. There hasn't been a company in the last 8 months that's come through that's worked out of a post office box, UPS store, any of those kind of things. So when someone says they take a long time to do something, I have to disagree. When someone says they don't listen to us, I have to disagree.
I don't. 8 months is a long time to me, Dale. Yeah, I appreciate
but to anybody else, it's not how the government.
I was going to say, but dealing with the government, we've been on the DMV line, and that takes 8 months, so we get it.
It was fixed.
I'm just glad we were able to fix it.
Yeah, and the other thing is when you talk about voice and talking about the events like this and social media and us talking about it, look how quickly when it came up. But I think there was the accident that was in Austin that really triggered this. A lot of social media buzz about speaking English for drivers. That went very quickly viral, very fast enough that President Trump signed something within a few weeks of that accident happening.
Right.
So that's progress and listening to the industry.
So another question online. This one's from our friend Jeff Dickinson.
Jeff,
where are you, Jeff? You're supposed to be here. So
the founder, the co-founder of the Freight Fraud Task Force.
There you go. We're missing the chops. And the cowboy hat. Definitely didn't have the cowboy hat here last night, Jeff. Why isn't the FMCSA mandating that a VIN number be painted on the doors of a power unit? And that would be a great way to match insurance policies with dispatch carriers and an additional vetting process to eliminate the fraudulent operating carriers. Thoughts on that?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure I've ever heard that recommendation. Maybe another department in FMCSA has heard that recommendation. But this is the first I've heard of it.
I guess my first thought, though, is the ones that are the good guys, and then their VINs are just right out there in the open. And then what happens with all that information that's just there on the side of their truck? And then they take that info and make like a fake bill of sale, or they do like you could you can do some damage with some VIN numbers just floating around.
We've seen where US DOT numbers and MC numbers have been swapped on trucks.
Oh yeah.
We have video.
I just saw a video where they have a printer in their truck and they just print out a new vinyl thing to put on there, or they'll have the piece of paper.
Wild.
It's crazy.
There's like processes and machines, and how they're doing that now is just crazy.
And I think that's something that's confusing with a lot of people in the industry too. It's like, how is that even legal, right? And it's like, how do we get that to not be legal? Because really, whatever's listed on that, that's what information we want. So almost like if we were to make that part legal, illegal, if it's not your company that you're representing, your VIN is tied to, that maybe that's the new bill that we got to get passed and got to push through.
But we'd have to get rid of the lease program, because these guys could be leased on as owner operator with one truck today, or with one company today and another company tomorrow.
Which is fine, but then at the end of the day, it's saying who it belongs to. But then you have your lease agreement in hand too, so you have documentation.
There's no chain of custody on it though. When you go down the road of that, Dale, how often are they switching that? I mean, if it happens 3 times in 2 days, is there a lease agreement that's starting stopping?
That's the point. The lease agreement has to be legal, because the bad thing is that the horrible thing about it is the bad guys make it so bad for the good guys, right? So there are good guys doing the right thing, but most of the bad guys don't have a proper lease agreement, and most brokers don't know what to look for in a lease agreement.
Right.
And you get the most local law enforcement, and they don't know the difference.
Oh my gosh. No. Whenever we were at Matt's, that was wild to me. I was like, I mean, they're like, yeah, we don't know. I'm like, you would think you'd brush up on some of the stuff before you go to Matt's, but
it's very complicated. I mean, what we do is very complicated, and local law enforcement is there to keep everyone safe.
Yeah.
So, and this is very complicated stuff.
Yeah, I think that, back in 2023, May of 2023, there were 6 senators and 2 representatives that wrote to the Federal Motor Carrier Safety, the OIG of Department of Transportation, saying that we have 3,500 cases of fraud that we'd like to have you look into. They got an answer back. And they also said, let's develop a freight fraud task force within the agency. About 6 months later, they got back a letter saying, hey, we looked at 25 of those cases. They had to do with household goods, but didn't mention anything about a freight fraud task force. I think that each state should look into a freight fraud task force and train not only their consumers, their freight companies, but have dialogue with the local police officers to come and say, or the DOT representatives to say, this is what we should look for in a lease agreement, and tie it. If we start with one state, we'll go to another, and at least the lease agreement is a federal document that they can all teach their guys what to look for, and the driver's got to carry one with them anyway. So federal law.
I see your. The state trucking associations are starting to all enact fraud task force, and that will then go to state lobbying soon. But
that's a great idea.
But yeah, you are seeing the state organizations, the state trucking associations, starting to enact these types of discussions, and eventually that will lobby the state
well, even like those California guys I was just talking about, they have the cargo theft task force. How they had to even get that started, because I was like, well, how come whenever I call one police department and I'm telling them about that, they're like, oh, well, call that guy because he's tracking there, call him. And you're like, I'm not calling every department as he's driving. That's insane. So I think just even that education, I'm like, well, how do we get everybody educated? And they're like, well, funding, we got to have trainers, we got to do this. So what they did actually even to get there started was they went to a city hall and they petitioned that they would have, I think it was like an extra $1 on every DMV or CDL license or something like that. And that specifically goes towards that department. So, I mean, it takes money to do all this stuff. And I think people don't even think of that too with the government. I mean, we got, Doge going in there and making a bunch of changes and doing all these things. So we have to make sure that they are getting the money that they need. And let's say like an extra $1, that was not going to hurt, right?
Right. Well, all right, Ken. So to get back on a little bit of a track here. So when the FMCSA revokes a company for fraud or safety violations, how is the agency ensuring that the same individuals don't reapply under a new LLC or another family member's name?
Yeah, so we have a vetting program, and we do revoke authority when we find and prove fraud. And we have a vetting program that looks at all applications for operating authority and checks against our existing database. And they check for a couple things. They check for affinity. Does anything match? Does the phone number, the name, the address, does anything match? And then they look for motivation. Is the existing registrant motivated to reincarnate, come back in under disguise?
Yeah.
Are they out of service? Were they revoked? And if the answer to both of those is yes, and there's a scoring mechanism, then they get vetted. And we have investigators that look deeper into these applications. And we will reject an application if we find that a carrier is trying to reincarnate, as you said, come back in after they've been put out of service.
No, that's right.
And I know that this probably goes back to the administrative law judge's ruling back in 2019, where the agency really doesn't have enforcement authority on a lot of issues. Can you speak to that a little bit and maybe tie it into like what kind of authority you have for enforcement and what you can, like for instance, if a person lied in his application, it's a felony for perjury. And I know we put some people in jail for that, but can you just speak to that a little bit? What kind of authority you do have?
Within the registration office, we have authorities that talk about, how's it worded? It's whether the applicant is truthful or not. That's not how it's worded. But,
right.
But basically, if they, as long as they didn't falsify any of the documentation, if we prove that they falsified information, then we can reject the application. Or in some cases, revoke the authority if they already have it. If we prove they were not honest and they provided misleading or incorrect information in the application.
So one of the things that we're coming across a lot is affiliations with other MC numbers or other FMCSA regulated entities. Now, that's not illegal. I mean, look at all the companies that Landstar is affiliated with. They have an in-way, but there are a lot of companies that are not, so it's not illegal to be affiliated. It is illegal not to disclose that affiliation. So when someone marks, no, I'm not affiliated with anyone else, that's a reason to put them out of service if they don't fix themselves, right?
Well, it's a reason to reject the application.
Or that's what I meant.
Yeah, our vetting team does just that. They look to see if they find an affiliation and the affiliation is not disclosed on the application, then they can reject that application. A lot of times they'll reach out to the applicant to find out if it was intentional or a mistake or an oversight, and they're able to correct it.
Yeah, so we're going to show cause, fix it, great. You don't, then you're out.
Right.
Fair enough. So what exactly, so you have a registration, so this kind of ties into that, the registration fraud division. What exactly does that division do, and what's its core mission?
Yeah, so it's a registration fraud team that we stood up not too long ago, within the last year. We got authority to stand up this team, and they help us in a few areas. Unfortunately, their number one priority right now is, because it's the highest volume, is helping victims of fraud. So they'll, if a carrier's been a victim of fraud, maybe they gave up their email in a phishing attempt or gave up information they shouldn't, and their account's been compromised. This team will help them get back to a good state. They'll change the password, change the PIN number, change the fraudulent information back to the correct information, and help them get back on the road and protect their account. They also look for process improvements. If they find fraud, then we got to go back and take a look at how it happened in the first place. Does our system need to change? Does a process need to change? Does our vetting need to change? So they do a lot of that as well, make recommendations where we can try to close the gaps and close the doors.
Yeah, the bad guys are evolving, so that's how exactly you stay in front of it. I love that.
But it's a busy, unfortunately, it's a busy team.
Oh yeah, I can't even. How many employees do that?
Well, we started with 5, we're down to 3 now. So, but those 3 are very busy.
So they never sleep. Yeah, they're always doing this.
And they're so efficient. We, like I mentioned before, our platform's Safer. So we send that information and say, hey, this guy changed it. He said he didn't do it. That email goes into Safer. We've had it fixed into FMCSA. We've had that group fix it in 11 to 22 minutes.
Yeah.
A fraudster can't work that fast, but FMCSA did, and that saved that you wouldn't believe, if you have 20 of those, how many loads were protected in those 22 minutes.
Yeah, just don't hold us to that standard every time.
No, but I'm saying it's been that fast. But that's just
that's
through our testing right now. You haven't been given that onslaught of, hey, they're checking it, let's have them put them to work, right?
The team does a great job.
Yeah, they're fantastic. Unbelievable.
That's awesome.
So, oops, wrong question. We're going to the next one. So, what are the current trends in freight settlements and recovery? Given that immediate loss is typically borne by the shipper, to what extent is this cost ultimately passed on to the broker and carrier?
Yeah, maybe Dale can address that more eloquently than I can.
I know a lot of stuff, but I don't know that.
Yeah. That's really kind of out of my realm.
Yeah, it's more of probably an insurance kind of issue.
Yeah, that's likely going to be for a different discussion, but probably not directly for this particular panel. But
I don't know, but I'll find out.
Yep, and I can actually probably answer that question offline. So, but I'm not going to tie it up on this particular panel. So, but I'll hit you up here after the podcast, which we're going to run until about 1:45 Eastern time today. So. So Ken, we're wrapping up on time. I'm going to hit you with a question that's not on here, but I think you'll be okay with it. So, so you've been at 2 broker carrier summits now, and I'm just going to reach out to the next year. Where's the FMCSA going over the next year? What are your major initiatives? Where do you see yourself being at this time next year? Major advances along these lines?
Well, what I hope and we're striving for is next time I come to Broker Carrier Summit, I'm updating you on the new deployed registration system.
Fair enough.
And telling you all the great things that it does, because it is going to be more secure and more stable and user-friendly, so that you don't have to call for help so much. That's what I hope I'm updating this group on next time I come.
Beautiful.
Well, even since last year, it's been a big difference.
Yes.
Or not even last year. When was that? That was the fall. So that was like,
fall.
right. 6
But
months ago or whatever.
I even roll back to Matt's. So I was at Matt's a year ago too. So
and the identity verification is a good example of what I would call success.
Absolutely.
And at the last Broker Carrier Summit, I was pitching, this is what we want to do.
Right.
And here we are, and we've done it for all new applicants.
You guys are killing it.
For the one coming up in Orlando, and I worked with Dan and talked with the folks on the board, that our real goal now is that we see what's happened with the registration department of FMCSA. The next one, let's bring somebody from safety at FMCSA. Let's bring somebody that's going to talk about ELDs. Let's bring someone that's going to talk about hours of service, because I think the success we're getting with the Broker Carrier Summit and the agency is huge. So if it works just for registration, imagine what's going to do when we start bringing those other guys in too. It's going to help everybody.
Yeah, fair enough. So, Ken, where can everybody find you?
In Washington, D.C.
Fair enough. Figured that.
Listen, my email, I'll put my email out. I put it out there all the time. It's Kenneth.Riddle, that's KENNETH.RIDDLE @DOT.gov. Pretty straightforward.
All right.
You're the best. Glad you came on.
Thank you.
Danielle, where can everyone find you?
Yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn, Danielle Spinelli, or of course you can go to mycareportal.com.
And I've been known to spend some time on LinkedIn. And,
Never, not him.
And you could also reach me at info@freightvalidate.com.
He'll be there with his flashcards.
With his flashcards. And something about Dale that I found out. I asked him who's helping him with his social media. And Dale says, what was the answer? Nobody. Dale does it all himself. All those memes you see from
he never sleeps. I know he never sleeps.
Are all Dale Prax. So
that's the fun part of the job. Actually, the rest is not as fun, but that's fun.
It is fun.
The man never stops. So I appreciate you all coming on. This has been great. Thank you very much, and look to see you around over the remainder of the summit.
Yeah, lots of fun.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. So we're going to shuffle this crew out, and we're going to pull in the Bain. So and see whoever else rolls by. We've got a variety of folks coming in here. So Broker Carrier Summit Indy has been interesting. So like I said, 550, 600 people here. It's a different level of energy as always. It's a different kind of conference or summit, really, than others. So we end up chatting. It's just a different energy, and it always seems to escalate. So
things always escalate, don't they? If I'm around,
it's a positive escalation.
Yes.
But I've been looking at how we do things in every which way this year, and I've given up trying to deal or manage this particular summit or any of these summits in a normal way, and I think we just have to come at it differently next time. So
and to be fair, I think a lot of folks are looking at that, and again, this isn't a negative. It's
absolutely a positive. It's how do you deal? How do you work in this type of environment? Because there's a lot of positive, but it's it's definitely different.
It's a lot of information. It's a lot of it's motion, right?
Right.
And so making sure that you cut through the stuff that doesn't apply to you. And so I think that's kind of universal what I've heard over the last couple of years, but specifically today and this week is how can we target the folks we want to talk to and be very, very I think we were talking about this a couple weeks ago, very surgical with your approach to the conference attendance. And I think certainly that's evolved for us over the last couple of years as an organization. And then and with the BCS, I think that's one of the cool things is because of the way it's been designed, they're able to pivot and move a little bit and create those we'll call it surgical centers for people to be able to be very precise and get the most value out of it. And so definitely a different vibe here in Indy, not a negative way. But what's really cool is every person I've talked to, universal has been, this is so different than every BCS, which is always different than every conference. And I probably got more out of this in the last day and a half than even Fort Worth, because again, it was just designed differently and set up differently. So net positive.
Yeah, net positive. I think the education out of this one is more for the typical attendee than not. I was surprised in my panel yesterday when I always like to prompt and find out what the demographics are, and I asked how many people have never been to a BCS before, and or how many people are new, and usually I get a lot of repeat attendees.
Yep.
75% of the room was first time.
Yeah.
That was actually a new one. So any other panel ever before, 75% are repeat. So
and another
difference.
Another I think unique thing is not only first BCS, but a lot of people it's their first event.
Right.
Period.
Well, event of all time
ever, which was really interesting actually to have a lot of those conversations.
Right. Well, heck, we had a first business card handed out.
Right. Yeah.
Mia's new company.
Yeah.
One of her account reps handed out to Cami her first business card ever yesterday.
That's so cool. I think
that's amazing. So, so definitely an interesting thing.
So, yeah.
Did we lose Robin? She always runs away.
Yeah, she's
afraid of the camera.
Yeah, so I was talking to her, and then she had to go get ready for something. So she had an offsite lunch. She was heading to. So we're flying solo for now until we can fly down the next victim.
Supposed to have Upwell come by. We're supposed to have a variety of different. I
know Dan was over by the booth. Maybe grab him or something. So
I'll bark at Marie in a second.
So your thoughts so far? I just blabbed a whole bunch about BCS Indy so far. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are I really haven't had time to have thoughts. So It started at 8:00 in the morning yesterday. It ended at midnight last night.
Yep.
I was very tired. You Irish goodbye.
As I do.
Yeah. And that was just poof gone. So I was constantly in discussions about something related to transportation yesterday.
Yeah.
At the end of the panel, which was noon yesterday, it took me 2.5 hours to walk 100 feet.
That's which we've talked about this at conferences that we attend, whether separate or together.
Can you see if Dan's down there?
And it's a great problem to have, and it's also a very challenging problem to have, right? Because you do sometimes I just need to get back to the room. I just lay my head down. That's all I need to do. But also I know both of us experienced this where some of the most important deals that we get out of these are during those walkbys.
Right.
And so it's like you give it the attention, and that's, to be fair, what I'm saying that is when someone stops you, more often than not, they're not just stopping you just to get a card or say they met somebody. Like especially at one of these events, like it's a targeted approach, and that's a positive thing. And so take the walk, take the call. We're checking.
I think we got
some comments here.
Lindsey coming. That was just an internal one.
Gotcha.
So I think even that this is an education event, and that's something that we push back to the industry.
Yep.
A lot of new people, like you said, there's a lot of new people that have never attended an event here.
Yeah.
Or are fairly new to these events. So, just pushing back that education. A lot of people come up and ask questions that you don't get at other events. So,
correct.
It's, hey, what do you think about this particular scenario? I have 2 trucks and I'm trying to figure out how to make that work.
Mm-hmm.
and that's different than other industries. There are other industry events. So you have that, and then you have regular business, and then you have all the usual conference stuff that we have with partnerships and otherwise. So, Mr. Dan Lindsey,
what's going on, brother?
Hey, buddy.
It's Thursday. We're on the downhill slide. So
BCS Thursdays.
BCS
slide. We're still on our skis too, so that's good.
Yep. So most of us are. I just haven't heard of anybody that's lost their skis. There's a few people that dipped today. So
it happens. Last day of the conference.
Oh no, that's all right. So it is what it is. So
yeah.
It's a long week. How have you felt about the extension of the timeline to, in effect, 5 days?
It's been interesting. So gotten a lot of mixed reviews on that. None of them bad per se, but just the most negative thing someone has said about it is that it's a lot. And if you've been to a BCS, you know that we go hard.
Yeah,
there's a lot of conversations
in literally every arena.
That's how I opened this.
Yeah.
Yes, I started at 8:00 in the morning yesterday. I ended at midnight, and it was constant wall. I was getting emotionally grumpy last night, and it wasn't because I was mad at any particular Maria's laughing, but I just couldn't handle it anymore. It was like I turn around and somebody like, "Hey, let's talk about doing something." I'm like, I can't really have another conversation. I'm sorry,
and that's
strange for me.
That's interesting. That's one of the most unique aspects of the BCS is, I think, the Broker Carrier Summit as an organization, as a company, and us as a leadership team are intentional about everything that we do. That intentionality spreads all the way through every single attendee. Everyone comes here, even the ones who don't really run the conference circuit.
Right.
They come here with a purpose, and they will accomplish their purpose.
Yeah.
No matter how many conversations they need to have.
Yep.
And so it's intense.
No, it's absolutely that, and it's always been that way. But I think as things have grown amongst all of us over the last few years, it becomes more and more and more and more and more. So
yeah.
What are we looking like numbers wise? I know we're over 500. I think we're getting close to 560-ish.
554 was the final count.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And when you look at from an industry perspective, where things are, certainly there's a lot of trepidation around tariffs, around just the markets and whatnot. But this is still something people are investing in, to attend and to be here. To the point that now we have people trying to sneak in. I think that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, we had a dozen people try to sneak in over the course of yesterday.
Yeah.
I never heard of people trying to sneak into trade shows or conferences.
I've heard it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've heard it.
I've known people that have snuck in. There's people that that I know have snuck in.
Yes.
So we'll talk about that at another time.
I guess that means that show's doing something right.
Right.
Yeah.
There's enough value there that you would try to.
Or they need security.
And to be fair, I don't feel bad, but I definitely had to bust a dad voice out a couple of times yesterday, which it was interesting. So a very unique experience here in Indy.
Yeah, well, this year was our first experience with having security on site with Governor Braun coming in yesterday. We needed to have an additional security presence throughout the day. So it's been a really good environment. I've had a lot of positive reviews. Tuesday night was absolutely fantastic. Yeah, with the speed networking. We worked out a lot of the kinks from Fort Worth, and I think we did it really well.
I think so. And I have the one kind of universal thing is everybody says this venue is so cool.
Oh, yeah.
It's so dope.
19th century converted train station.
Yep.
Yeah, you get to sleep in a train car if you're lucky.
Chopped up, and it's like separated out, and so you want to find a little space to go tuck yourself in, to have a little meeting.
Oh, yeah. There's all kinds of cool nooks and crannies.
Round the corner, and you get it.
I explained to a few folks, when the board took a look at this, was September we were here?
September, yeah.
We're doing the tour, we're walking, and I remember coming in upstairs in the mezzanine of the Grand Hall, and I remember leaning to Adam, like, I think this is what women feel like when they see their wedding dress. Like, this is it. Like, this is where we're gonna be. Like, seriously, like, I walked in, I'm like, and I know they already had some seating set up for another event that was there. Yeah. But I'm like, this is where we're gonna be.
Yeah.
And anyway, so it's been really cool to see that and kind of see that come to fruition over the last 6 months. And it's very, very exciting.
Well, I think one of the things that's really cool about what we're doing here compared to other events, and again, I don't take any offense at other events. I'm not trying to knock any other events at all. Each event has a purpose, and they play to their purpose. one of the things that we do differently, and we're unique in this, is we intentionally choose smaller venues because it forces people to be in closer proximity, and the conversations flow easier, and the conversations jump from person to person, from table to table to table.
Yep.
If I was at a conference a few weeks ago, or a couple months ago rather, and the venue was just, well, think of Vegas, right?
Yeah.
It's massive.
Right.
There are a lot of places.
Large.
It's very large.
Yep.
There's a lot of places to hide in Vegas, but you have to walk a mile and a half to get away from from the conference.
Yes.
But here, it's a very intimate setting, not just because we have a lot of people who are intentional about having conversations, but it's also an intimate setting because the venue itself lends itself to being more intimate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. There's bonus in that. By all means, there's actually a positive negative, because if you go doing math 16 hours, you don't get to hide.
No.
So you have to plan that in if you are constantly getting drilled for 16 hours. So it gets to be a long day. And that's where that 5-day thing is. But to your point, you go to a Vegas, you go to a Gaylord, wherever, and you can't find the people that are there. Some of those events are absolutely massive, and you're going to be in the middle of it no matter how big of an event it may be. But absolutely. And then the intentionality and the down market side of BCS is always what's made it more important to me. And the fact that the education here, and the fact that it pushes down market. Lots of us work with larger organizations all day, every day, and just being able to, last night I was talking with a bunch of 1, 2, 3 truck operations or small brokers, and they're just sitting there picking your brain. They don't get that opportunity to show up at an event and just have access to everyone.
No.
So, and that's something that BCS offers. So,
well, and the conversations that are happening are real, everyday, practical conversations, as opposed to just high-level keynotes that talk about generalities in the market, which, again, there's a place for that. But there's actual practical conversations happening here.
Absolutely. What's up, Gracey?
Another day, another dollar. Had a good panel there with Jeremy Reimer and Mike Lombard this morning. Had lunch with a bunch of people that said that they're just not hearing these conversations. And I'm like, it's just common sense. Just nobody wants to spend time to talk about it. Now I'm getting ready. I got another one at 3, actually. I got put on now.
Perfect.
I've got one at 3 or 3:30 panel. So
yeah, I got a text as soon as I was getting off stage and like, hey, we need you for this.
And that is kind of the beauty of BCS.
The dwell times.
Oh yeah, the Blake.
Yeah,
Blake. Gotcha.
But Balake.
Yeah, no, it's been great. The conversations, the people, just the networking in general. I talked to several people where they're like, "Hey, we've made meaningful connections here."
Yeah. There are people tendering freight already.
Yeah, I was talking to 2 companies last night. One of the guys was talking to us. I'm not sure if it came up to you, Charles, and told you his story at all, but he said in October of last year, his company was not in a great spot, not in a great spot at all. And kind of as a last ditch effort to pull something off, they came to the BCS in Fort Worth, and with the brokerage connections they made, they're profitable now as a carrier.
It's beautiful.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So not only are they profitable, they're profitable in this market.
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of connections that are being made. That's the kind of value that's being added.
Well, that's exactly what it's about. There is a void when it comes to places people can meet and just build a relationship. You go to these conferences, everyone's trying to sell you something. You walk down those aisles and you got the booths and everyone's trying to hand you something. You feel like you're about to sign away your firstborn if you stop and talk to someone.
Right. Yep.
But you come here and it's casual. It's organic. The conversations are taking place. The people are making meaningful relationships, like the one that just walked by and just stopped away with me. I met him last night, had dinner with him. A great dude. You're doing all this different stuff that's allowing these relationships to be made, and they're meaningful ones. You saw I brought carriers from my side to it, and he's like, I'm just looking for someone to help with freight on auto hauling. And I'm like, that's a first.
Yeah.
But we were able to, even as niche of an event as we are, we were able to connect him with a couple of people that are brokerage that deal with auto haul.
Well, and that's what was crazy. Like, I'm like, hey, man, you can come. Let's see. And sure enough, you guys made magic happen. It's just absolutely fantastic to see this kind of setup and to see the excitement behind it.
Yeah. I almost don't want to say this, but one of the things that describes the BCS the most, or is coming to describe it the most, instant ROI.
Yes.
No matter who you are, whether you're a broker, carrier, agent, tech vendor, factoring company, consultant, whoever, instant ROI.
No, absolutely. And it's just exciting to hear everyone's story and experience. And it's different for every person that I've talked to. Mm-hmm. We had the guy from 10th Street, Kevin, on, and he was like, I've been wanting to come to this forever, and I finally got to come, and this is awesome.
So, that's a great one. To the point of, we had a whole bunch of people scheduled to be here, and I'm sure they're all like in the middle.
Yeah, everybody's in a conversation.
Oh, it's like herding cats when you have so many opportunities to meet so many awesome people.
I mean, I blew my whole morning off this morning after how crazy it was yesterday. I was like, I'm just not doing today.
Did you end up at Nikki Blaine's too at some point?
I did not.
You did not. Okay.
I text Charles and I was like, "Where are you at?" And then he said where he was at, and I'm like, I have no.
Not today.
As I was talking about with Danielle, she's like, the social battery was toast. So I'm like, I was done. I at the end of karaoke, I was over. So
I will say we got to run that back every conference that you and I are both at. We have to sing Piano Man at karaoke.
Yeah, that's been a Tony thing with him and I for like a year. So and we seem to do it at every conference. So I mean, it's been a manifest last year.
Yeah,
so, and every conference since. So.
Well, speaking of network, guys, I got to hop onto a quick meeting with someone I met here, but I couldn't pass by without stopping in and seeing my friends.
Perfect. Well, we appreciate the time, and we're going to grab Cami.
Yes.
So,
thanks, buddy.
Cami. Thanks, man. Yeah, exactly. More. So, have you met Cami?
I have not. No.
Okay. Well, perfect. So,
hi, friend.
There's headset. So we have Cami Zimmer with Glympse. She was actually just on. Her and her CEO were just on the podcast a couple weeks ago.
They were.
But Cami's with Glympse, so they're actually a new partner of ours. This is her first BCS.
This is my first one.
Yeah.
So, it's actually been fun.
You've been running the conference gauntlet.
I'm telling you, I'm owning this.
Yeah, no, I'm with it.
I'm bringing this. I'm bringing a little bit of this.
A little of this. So, spirit fingers.
Cami, have you met Dan at all yet?
I haven't, but I feel like I've met you on social media. So
I get that a lot.
Pleasure to meet you.
Girl, Sam.
Yes, it's a very pleasure to meet you.
You as well. Thank you.
Yes.
He's exactly who you think he is.
That's awesome.
Which interpret that as you will.
Yeah,
Probably good or bad.
Probably a lot more. So.
Do you talk with your hands?
All the time. Mine are out here.
Okay,
yeah.
perfect.
So
great.
that's why they can't give me a handheld mic, because I'll be in and out all the time.
Yeah.
That's great.
I guess Christy from our team, from the GLCS team, says hi.
Oh, hello. My friends. Here, I'll do another heart.
we got a couple good comments there.
Oh, I guess. Okay. Yeah, I guess I missed. Shame on me.
The Bodacious Cowboy.
I put this one up earlier. So Jeff says, Broker Carrier Summit is the event that you should attend. There's more to learn here than you can get at any other show. And
Not
I
wrong.
think he's 100%.
So. And what's Mike say?
So Mike was talking back. That came over when we were talking about security. So maybe it's the sneaky double brokers again, trying to moonwalk on into the broker trade show with fake badges and forged handshakes. So
I mean, they tried, and I'll tell you, it was funny. I asked where their badges were. They said, "Oh, we're gonna go get them." I said, "Why don't you get them right now?" And they just dropped a box of wine.
Maria, go.
So I told them that
I'm not paying for that
to go get that, and they just turned and walked out.
Yeah.
So it was kind of funny, but I think they are bringing this all in for the wedding that's tomorrow. So Dan, fun fact, if you didn't know, you guys have to be fully out of here by tonight.
Yeah, I found that out about 15 minutes ago.
Yep, that's exciting.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
That's
yeah,
cool.
I just had a conversation with the hotel about that.
Yeah.
We're gonna get our way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Because we have
Holy smokes. Okay, red wine for all.
Red.
Opa. That goes the Cabernet.
Yep.
Hopefully that's cheap stuff.
Well, it's not a party.
That I can smell. This is Infidel.
Yeah. It's not a
and
party
she
till
stepped
something
on it,
breaks.
so
So
now
it's
it's
true.
true party now.
All right, the R2X guys
So
walking by.
those who are wondering what we're laughing about, there is I don't know if we're laughing or if we're cringing. I think most of us are cringing.
I think it's a lunge.
Several bottles of wine just fell off a cart.
Yep.
In front of us, so Cami, what's your thoughts on BCS?
Yeah, my first time here, and had
Missy says, not the red wine.
not
Yes,
the red
it was the red wine, Missy.
wine. Yes. So what I have experienced is I've actually sat in on various different conversations, whether they're people speaking at a podium or whether they're just a small group of people or a large group of people, that has actually helped me understand the industry more from a fraud standpoint, as well as what is needed in the industry as a new person, from where I sit. And it's actually been helpful for me because people here are willing to have the conversations with people that are new in the industry. Mm-hmm. And they're also willing to share what it is that they're trying to solve for. And you don't see that at every event. A lot of times people are a little bit more, closed mouth or just like, oh, I've got it all together. But people are really actually willing to share what they know with you, especially for new people. So I know you've got your goal of 750 people at some of these summits or whatever. But if you're new to the industry, this is a great place to come and just really listen to people talk, and they will tell you exactly what they need to know. I had one person basically give me the basics of what just the very basics, 101. And as a new person coming in and learning, it's just been really helpful.
If I can hop on a soapbox real quick. So
Mm-hmm.
the values of the BCS,
Mm-hmm.
right? We have 3 core values that everything we do, everything we think about doing revolves around. Those
Mm-hmm.
are intentionality, authenticity, and brand elevation.
That's great.
The brand elevation piece, everyone is buying into, and it's one of the most exciting things that I've seen personally in the industry. We are here, and within our network, we are absolutely obliterating the narrative that in order for me to win, you have to lose.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes,
everybody
that's what I'm
can
used to.
win.
Yes.
Everybody can eat.
Mhm.
And you know what? When that happens, people enjoy working in the industry that they're in.
Mm-hmm.
It's success is not pie. I think that's where we talked about this on a few different episodes.
It can include pie.
Absolutely, it can.
It better include pie.
Multiple kinds of pie.
Pie is great.
Specifically key lime pie. I digress.
Yes, we talked about
Or cobbler. You had the
I
cobbler
said what I
yesterday.
said,
it.
Dan.
Whatever pie you want, it can include it. So,
If you're successful enough, yes,
we've all
whatever
had
pie you want.
so.
But no, I think that's an important piece to hit on is that the way that the networking is done, to your point, is very much of how do we bring you along? Because if you have like-minded people moving in the same direction, that pushes the industry in the right direction. I think that's the general message that comes from that, and that's the actions that you're talking about is what lines up with it.
Yeah, it was great. And one other thing I noticed is that where I had the expectations that this coming into maybe the conversations would be maybe around the tariffs or all these different things, and it wasn't. And just hearing some of the industry experts or whom, when they're giving presentations and showing things, it's actually been really educational for me from even like a policy business decision making. And I really didn't expect that. And that was actually really insightful.
Well, I think when you get at a lot of some conferences, some sessions, you're going to get understanding what the potential impact is from the tariffs. And then the other discussions are, okay, here's how we're going to conduct business under this particular scenario so that we can survive. And yesterday during my panel afterwards, I was talking with someone and they're like, how do you do this? And I'm like, you get it up in the morning, you make it to the end of the day, then you rinse and repeat. And then in a good time, you can look at it differently. But, that's truly what it is. And there's, in the case of a tariff, in the case of the tariff related scenarios that we're going into, unless we're going to impact it as an industry, and we're a large industry and we have a big bat to swing, but you as a small organization do not have that big bat to swing. It takes a lot of lobbying, and a lot about more than that than anyone else here at the table.
Always wanted to be a lobbyist for anybody out there. That was my 16-year-old self wanted to be a lobbyist. Said nobody.
But you spent a lot of time in Washington, way more than us. So so you understand the dynamics of that far more than we do. But the reality of it is here, it's about survival. It's about getting the job done. It's about becoming a profitable organization and educating. And everyone here wants to learn and or educate. So those that can get pieces of education out of here, they're going to do that, and those that are here to try to raise the bar for everyone are also here to do that as well. So it's great to see that around. And to Dan's point earlier, not everyone has to just because someone wins doesn't mean someone else has to lose. I think that's a mantra that's existed in my career for 30 years. And the people who organize this event and all of the allies around it have lived that since the get-go. And I think it's important that it continues on that way.
Sounds good. I think our security guy needs lunch. So
Yeah,
I'm
fair
gonna
enough.
duck out here.
Appreciate the time.
Yeah.
Appreciate the time. We're gonna grab Don.
Dot.
We're gonna dump Dan and grab Don.
All right.
So
Swapping out board members here.
You're saying we're upgrading, got it?
yeah. Well, it's Don's always an upgrade.
Yes.
Yes. So if you want to hang around just for a little bit, you met Don.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
met
yeah,
Don
yep.
a couple weeks ago.
We met
So,
Don, yeah,
all right.
yeah.
Wow.
BFFs already. So
Yeah.
that's another thing about
Well, we
these
can-
shows. And
yeah.
Don, kudos to you and Robin from Clio and Lori from Descartes. Like, honestly, what another thing in this industry is that there's lots of women leaders, which I don't see very often. And I said this to you before. It's nice to come to an industry where there's a lot of knowledge.
Well, and that's really developed and evolved, I'll say, over the past 7 to 10 years. When I started in this industry 34 years ago, there were not a lot of...
When you were like 4.
Yes, exactly. Precisely 4 years old.
Mhm.
There just were not a lot of women. So I think it's evolved a lot. And I think it started in the tech sector, where you started seeing a lot more female leadership, but I'm seeing it more and more now in the trucking and the brokerage side of things as well. And it's super exciting.
How's the conference going for you?
It's fantastic, as always. Yeah, it's high energy, lots of buzz. It's good to see old friends and make new friends and just hear. I love sitting in the sessions. Like last BCS, I had to be involved in a lot of sessions. I intentionally did not do any panels myself. Hey. I did not do any panels myself this time, so I could sit and listen, and I've really enjoyed doing that, just going from room to room and hearing what people are talking about and the problems that are being raised and sometimes addressed and solved in real time, or at least the ideation of solving the problems in real time.
No, not doing panels sounds interesting.
It's quite nice. I'll say that.
It is.
Been busy.
Well, look,
Which is great. I appreciate doing the panels too, but yeah, it's a thing.
I get tired of hearing from you, so I'm sure everybody else does. I'm like, y'all don't need to see me again. You've already heard me.
When this is your 4th, my 4th, so we know the crew here. So so Cami, if you can tell us a little bit. I know you were just on 2 weeks ago, but let's have you tell us a little bit about Glympse real quick.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and I can actually now put it into the atmosphere of where we're at, right? And which has been helpful. Just, I guess, hanging out with all of you the last couple of weeks and last couple of months is.
Yeah, every week we seem to see you.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I just can't.
wow.
You just love me.
Like 4 weeks in a row.
I know. I think my microphone just went out. Maybe
It
not.
might just be your
Or just my
headset.
headphones. Okay,
Yeah.
we're just going with it. Okay, so
We'll do it
long story short, Glympse, 18-year-old company that is in the visibility space. And I use visibility, and then I start to smile because visibility is that word that we talked about 2 weeks ago. Notice how I
Yeah,
brought
I
that
still
back
need
up.
to give you my opinion on that. I have a little thing, so we'll chat later about that.
So we've been the location sharing leader. We were the pioneer of location sharing space on the mobile phone and IoT devices. 2008. So think about that. It was before Uber. That was before the iPhone came out. It was basically sharing location on a whatever device it is. And we've taken all that we've learned over the last 18 years. And now that we're in these industries, the supply chain industry, the steel industry, heavy metals industry, we're basically taking and providing a way for all of the various different assets out there, asset being a driver, a phone, or whatever that asset is. And we're taking and providing a multi-party collaborative view of things. So if you are working with a TMS or a Descartes or a Four Kites or Project 44 or whomever it is, you can actually go ahead and get some type of visibility, some real-time visibility, but not all of the assets and visibility.
Right.
And this is where he's gonna give me my honest, true opinion. And Nate, I'm ready for it. Bring it on. But I have been calling it. You guys ready? The rendezvous.
Yeah,
Rendezvous.
With a view, not rendezvous.
Yes. Yes.
Fair enough.
And I'm not sure if that helps at all, but it's kind of like lots of different proactive visibility into where many people are, so that it's not just logging into a portal and finding it out hours later. It's actually going ahead and providing proactive notifications and or a way to see it
Real time and on demand.
Yeah, the rendezvous.
Excellent.
I might get in trouble for that, but you have to tell me if you hate it or not.
I don't not hate it.
So you do it.
Two double negatives. He hates it.
I got to warm up to it a little bit. But
Okay.
We can chat.
We'll
through
chat.
it.
Yeah. I'll buy you coffee. We'll chat about it.
Yeah,
And I'm still back on that Guster song from like 1997.
Oh, I know. But what's been fun for me is to be able to talk with you guys about this and try to figure out ways that from the industry, because we are rather new in this, a year or two, and take what it is that you all know and try to figure out ways that we can make this industry better. And that's really what we're trying to look at it, is what is it that our platform can or cannot do to help make it a little bit better, if that makes sense.
Yeah, great. No, I'm super glad that you were able to come to BCS and get educated and get into the network and see everyone here. So.
And watch bottles be broken.
This is wild.
Oh, you witnessed that in real time.
Yeah, we saw the
rendezvous.
We had the rendezvous with all of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you shed a little tear over that alcohol abuse?
I think some people online did.
You could smell it wasn't really great wine. So
okay, well,
I'm good.
It was, Missy said, not the red wine.
That's hilarious.
So, but
I also didn't realize they also spilled it down there too, and it initially fell off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right.
So quite the debacle.
So Don, what's your major takeaway in differences between Fort Worth and Indy?
Wow. I don't know that it's terribly different. I think the energy is still really high. I think the engagement is high. I haven't actually looked at the final registration list, so I don't know the numbers.
Dan said 554.
So
554.
I feel like there's more carriers, or the carriers that are here are more engaged than Fort Worth.
Correct.
For sure.
Definitely more engaged.
For sure.
They're hunting.
Which is fantastic. And I love to see that, and just, feeling very comfortable and open about surfacing these problems. And frankly, the brokers are very open to receiving that feedback.
Right.
As I said earlier, watching sometimes these problems being solved in real time in these breakout sessions. So that's one observation. I think, look, every time we do one of these events, we get better at the content and at the panels and what we're talking about and how we're engaging. And I am super excited to see the level of engagement that is happening in these breakout rooms and I happen to be the content chair, so I am kind of overseeing putting together. But what we always tell the panelists is, look, we do not want you sitting in front of the room and speaking at people. You should have your 3 to 5 seed questions prepared, but even those seed questions should be designed so that you can turn those questions around to the audience to encourage that participation in the dialogue, because that's why we exist, right? That's why this event happens. And it's a lot of fun to watch that come to life, from Tampa to KC to Fort Worth.
The evolution's been incredible.
Yeah, it really has. It's been good.
Yeah, I enjoyed the Q&A. I wish I would have put more Q&A on my panel. We had a deep bench, and we went for a solid hour, and then we flipped to questions for the last half hour. And I could have went just so hard on that, because you want to put information out and then open questions. So I'm actually going to we already scheduled it. We're going to put that panel on this podcast too. Just it was solid. So we enjoyed the discussion as well. But yeah, the interaction on the panels, which is why they need to stay 90 minutes. It feels like that's a long time. But if you actually break it down and get the interaction, then it's not that long.
It's not that long. And look, that's been an evolution too. I think if we go back to KC, they were 45 minutes. And then in Fort Worth, they were an hour. And we continue to get the feedback. Like, we want more of that. We want more time, because at 45 minutes, you're just getting into the meat of the conversation, and the session's over. And the people for the next session are coming into the room. So we intentionally elongated that time for that time.
I think how many panels we're on that are 45 minutes, you're just starting to discuss. And if you have 3 thought leaders that are on the board or on the panel, you're barely getting past introductions. And everyone wants their voice, you know.
We all like to hear ourselves.
So absolutely, everyone wants their voice. So that takes 20 minutes just to say hi.
Yep.
And then you get into content, and that's 20 minutes, and then the panel's over. So that hour and a half, especially getting it interactive, that I think is important. And it somewhat depends on the audience, but this audience is very interactive.
It's been great. I think the other 2 things that I'm really excited about is, number one, the number of first-time attendees that I've talked to.
Yes.
A lot of first-time attendees. I love it. You know, how'd you hear about it? Saw it on LinkedIn, heard about it from a colleague that attended in the past. That's really exciting. And I just want to shout out the women in logistics. So we had our mixer on Tuesday night.
Phenomenal.
We have the one picture of all the women got up on stage and took a picture. And I don't know, there had to have been at least 50 or 60 people.
Yep.
At least.
Excellent.
And it wasn't all the women that are here. It was wild.
Correct. But from starting that, I mean, we announced it in Fort Worth, really in earnest, started doing things January, February. As of when we did our presentation yesterday, we were at 80 members of the Women in Logistics. But within an hour after our session, we had 15 new registrations.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
Amazing.
Wow.
So again, back to your comment. Kudos to the ladies. Right? It's really exciting. Sorry, I'm talking a lot here, but also one of my favorite moments so far was in the ladies' room yesterday.
That's a good place to meet
people. Hold on. They now are going to dip out.
Let me get the mute button ready.
I teed that up for you guys. But if you guys remember in Fort Worth, there was a girl, and I can't remember her name, but she was 15, 16 years old.
Grace.
She was Grace. Yes, she was here with her dad in Fort Worth, and I ran into her in the ladies' room, and I was like, "Oh, hey, you're back. Welcome back." And she's like, "Oh, I'm coming to every one of these." Like,
hold on. Let's get Cami's. We're gonna roll Cami out.
Okay.
So, just 1 second, Cami. How can people find you?
Oh, actually, go to corp.glympse.com on LinkedIn, just under Glympse.
All right.
Yep. Thank you
Thanks
so much for letting me join.
My friend.
Perfect. Sorry.
No, that's okay. So anyway, 15, 16 years old, came with her dad. And then we just got talking. I'm like, do you plan to major in logistics or supply chain? She's like, I think so. And she's a junior in high school. This is her second BCS, right? And she's like, I want to keep coming. I've told my dad I want to come to every one of these.
And I'll piggyback off that. So Gracey and Andy ended up sitting at my table for lunch today.
Okay.
And there were some other folks around. Some folks I'd known, some folks that I hadn't. And when I introduced her to everyone, Robin actually joined us as well, very quickly, Robin Hyra. And then Grace just took over the table.
Yeah.
Introducing herself, talking about what her and her dad do, talking about why she wants to come to this. And I kind of talked to her a bit about how, by the second day of Fort Worth, she's walking around to every woman, shaking their hand and meeting them. And watching her do that, again, to do that at 15, 16 years old, the power that she will walk into a room with when she's 18, she's 22, she's 25. Like I'm very excited to watch her.
Yes.
It'll be interesting to see what she does over the next 10, 20 years.
Yes.
So she's,
go Grace, if you're listening. I'm a big fan. I think we're all fans.
Girl saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
We got Todd.
Mr. Waldron.
Here comes trouble.
Been a minute.
Hello.
So,
The last time we were foreshadowing the Broker Carrier Summit at Matt's. And I hadn't signed up yet, and you guys convinced me, and I'm super excited to be here.
We bullied you, didn't we?
Yeah. You didn't
That's what
scare
we
me.
do.
Nate did.
Oh, you're cute.
I have that ominous presence. So I have the ominous presence. So we can wrap it up and let you go.
Okay.
So, all right.
Happy to do
Unless
that.
you want
Let's
to
see-
hang
let's see if we
out.
can grab
So
Spencer
you want
for
to tell us
merchandise.
where to find you? Or-
Sure. You can find greenscreens.ai, or you can reach me at dawn@greenscreens.ai.
All right.
Or on
Thanks.
LinkedIn.
Thanks
All right,
for the time.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
Bye.
So yeah, we touched base at Matt's for a minute, and here you be.
Yep.
So, you know, I never see you in Minnesota. I always see you at conferences. You don't live that
That's-
far
yeah.
from me.
Out and about.
So but we got to travel 1,000 miles to get 750 miles to be accurate. We're in transportation. We need to have
Yeah,
accurate
should know these
mileage,
things.
So
Practical?
650 miles. Yeah. Depends.
These are
We're-
those are air miles.
Are we billing or are we paying? Sorry, guys.
Fair point.
So yeah, how's the summit going?
It's going really well.
Yeah.
It's been really good. A lot of great people here, a lot of great connections, and had attended a really great fraud breakout yesterday. It was very informative. It's been both informative, a great networking opportunity, and a lot of fun too. So
This is not your first summit, but your first one in your new role, correct?
first broker carrier summit.
Oh, period. Okay,
Period.
before,
I have
so-
not been able to make it before.
Gotcha. So, well, one, introduce yourself. Tell everybody kind of who you are, kind of your background, and also now because you've been at Truckstop now for 3 months ish. So, kind of talk about your role there and what you're excited about too. Now coming to broker carrier summit, obviously we bullied you into coming. Had some fun, but what excited you once you got here?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So Todd Waldron, been in the industry for 16 years, started at C.H. Robinson in brokerage, started a brokerage branch for J.B. Hunt, and then worked on the technologies at J.B. Hunt and did a variety of other things. Last 5 years have been running a asset-based transportation company with a brokerage, Q Carriers out of Minnesota. And then, been at Truckstop for 3 months. And what really excites me about this conference is the heart of the relationship between the brokers and the carriers, and that being such an aspect of what we are focused on at Truckstop.
Sure.
So my role as Vice President Carrier Experience is really looking at understanding and making the carrier's experience across our ecosystem as efficient and impactful for them as possible. And how do we innovate for the carriers and bring them new value in what we're doing? But a core piece of that is the relationship between carriers and brokers.
Right.
And so coming to this and just being able to bring those groups together and unite in a way of trying to find strategic value, learning value, and relationship value is a pretty cool thing.
That's awesome. Love that. Obviously, one of the missions of broker carrier summit to do exactly that, and then to have organizations that support those relationships, like Truckstop and like Greenscreens. Obviously, Dawn was just here, and Glympse, like to give you all that opportunity to see these interactions in real time, because then what you get is you get both sides of the argument with your product, the carriers and the brokers. And so that helps drive innovation for y'all, which is incredible. So what's been one of the highlights for you so far? You mentioned the fraud panel, but what else can I highlight?
Yeah, I think the fraud panel, and then just being able to hear in diverse panels with carriers and brokers and being able to see them come together and hearing those different perspectives have been good. And then just the relationships and networking, constantly meeting new people, not only new trucking companies and brokerages, but also new vendors doing different things, doing unique things. We have a variety of partnerships at Truckstop that are just great relationships to have and only allow us to provide even more value to our customers on both sides of the equation.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Love that.
Perfect. Where are you headed next?
Tapa next week
NPTC
in Louisville.
Where?
Tapa.
Tapa.
Transportation asset protection, maybe it's freight fraud.
It's an insurance one, isn't it?
Potentially.
I think
it's
so.
like it's related around asset protection.
Yeah, because
claims.
Chief Ranieri's going to that too.
Correct. So there'll be a lot of
Chief
insurance.
Ranieri's going to that.
Yep.
So yeah.
Cargo claims. Working on a committee really focused on the true cost of cargo theft.
Gotcha.
Is one aspect, and then I'll be at Freight Fraud Symposium in Dallas the week after.
So will I.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. One day.
Yeah, I think we get in Monday. We're going to see a couple customers, and then we're flying back out on Thursday.
Yeah, I think I'm Tuesday through Thursday.
Perfect.
So yeah, you're going into the business traveler role.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a little different from the previous role.
Picking up a little bit.
Yeah.
I got to get back that Thursday to go see Megan Maroney and back in Minnesota. So
Yeah,
I'll get back
yeah.
Thursday.
Nice.
Fair enough. So, I'm gonna take some time off of these conferences. Although I have I've gotten several.
Yeah,
it's not time off. It's just like not traveling. I've been running hard.
Not traveling.
Since Manifest, I've been pretty much every week.
Yep.
But NPTC, I've got a few people that are pinging me. I don't think I'm going though. So, but we might have to look and see if we can shoot somebody down to NPTC. So
when is that?
Next week, I think.
I ain't going to that.
No. So it might be through. Is it the 11th? I don't know. So there's so many conferences.
There's
a lot.
So many conferences, and yet there's so many companies.
Yep.
So yeah, so many companies. So, yeah, I'm glad you're able to make it to this one. This because you never made it as Q, right?
No, I was not able to.
This was this is a unique event, so it's definitely a different look and feel. And previously it was Brett coming here for Truckstop, and so I'm glad.
And now he's here in a different role.
Right. Although I haven't seen him. Yeah, he's although I probably have seen him. I just probably just thought it was Dan Lindsey. So I have a picture. Fair. I have a picture of Dan Lindsey and Brett Huddle standing next to each other, and you couldn't tell who the difference. I mean, they're literally from a distance, but you can't tell the difference between the two from Fort Worth. So, anything else you got for BCS? Anything else that kind of sticks out for you? Bain rattled through all the questions super fast.
Yeah, how did you do that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you were just bam, bam, bam. So
get him in, get him out, maybe.
Yep, he's gone.
I'm kidding.
Well, fair enough. We got
a driver.
You want to join?
I do.
All right,
jump in.
Great.
Come on in, Stephen.
I was recommended to step in.
Sure. There you go, Stephen.
Love it.
Put this on?
Yep, put it on and grab hold of the mic and let's have a little chat.
So just talk right about like this close, Stephen.
Yep.
Right about here.
Kind of get in. So,
how about now?
Say it again.
You got it.
That good?
Oh man, that's the late night boys right there.
We are live. So.
All right. Good afternoon. My name is Mr. Deas with Deas Trucking LLC.
All right.
I'm a bulk carrier, and I just wanted to step in and say to anybody that's out there listening that's in the bulk industry, you might want to join this summit that they have. There are no bulk brokers here. There are no bulk carriers here. And there's a lot of things going on in the industry that one size fits all. And if we could get as close to 100% as we possibly can, we'll make a big difference in this industry.
Amen to that.
You just can't be at 70%, 83%. We got to get as close to 100% as possible, because the fraud they're just getting bigger and it's getting worse and it's causing more havoc, but just not on the carrier side, not on the broker side, but also on the insurance side.
Absolutely.
So, let's all come together and try to make things better for everybody across the board.
I think that sums it up perfectly.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So Steve, you're on the bulk side. You own one truck?
I got two trucks, two trucks and two trailers. Yes.
What kind of trailer are you running?
I run DOT.
What kind of
407? It's 407 chemical trailers, smooth bore, rear unload, 7,000 gallon capacity.
And this is liquid bulk, correct?
Liquid bulk, yes.
Liquid bulk chemical.
Chemicals, has and non-has. I run all 48, including Canada.
All right. So if anyone listening as a broker, you're looking at all broker freight for the most part, correct?
I'm looking to haul broker freight, shipper freight.
Anything you can get your hands on, you need.
Exactly.
Get the tank full. Let's get it right.
So if anybody out there has some freight, and where do you
I
run all 48?
All 48. I'm out of Middletown, Delaware.
Okay.
And I have a driver that lives in Dallas.
Okay.
So, my objective is to please the customer. Customer always comes first, whoever it is. Whether it's the broker, whether it's the shipper, whoever needs needs, resolution because everybody's got a problem. For some reason, it's not moving for some reason or another.
Sure.
You're not getting good service. You made promises that's not upkept. There's a problem somewhere. And, I've learned in this industry that you got to be a problem solver.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
how long you been driving, Steve?
I've been driving for 37 years.
Wow.
However, I've been a tanker yanker for 23 years. I've been pulling liquid for 23 years. I didn't start out in tractor trailer. I started out as a tow truck.
Yeah, same here.
And I moved up to a dump truck. And then I moved to a dump trailer. Then I moved to a tanker. And when I pulled my first tanker and learned how to pump a load off, I never looked back.
I started doing towing, heavy duty towing, and then I went into drive-in over the road, and then I went into tank and started hauling anhydrous, and then I decided I didn't want to die. And, so I moved into mostly pneumatic bulk, and then got into operations from there. So,
Well, that's one of the areas that I'm aiming for, propane and anhydrous ammonia. Hopefully one day I'll be able to,
Well, I know a bunch of guys, and I absolutely know brokerages that are moving chemical. So, if they're on here, want to reach out, how do they get a hold of you, Steve?
They can get a hold of me, email deastrucking@yahoo.com. D as in David, E as in Eddie, A as in Apple, S as in Sam, trucking@yahoo.com. My phone number is 267-249-9077.
And you have your own authority?
I do have my own authority.
Beautiful.
And I'm also hazmat certified and Canadian authority also.
And both you and your other driver, both hazmat, tank,
Yes.
everything.
Yes.
Beautiful. Love
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Perfect. So is this your first summit?
This is my first summit.
First industry event too, correct?
I mean,
First industry event, correct?
Yes.
First time you've gone to a conference
Yes.
of any kind.
Yes.
So what made you come?
Well, I seen the email come. Actually, a friend of mine sent me the email, and I thought about it, and I says, what do I have to lose? I got everything to gain and nothing to lose.
Amen.
I could chase a dollar all day, every day, but that's all I'll be doing is chasing a dollar. You got to build a foundation. Without a foundation, you cannot build. So I felt as though if I came here, I could start a foundation. And I learned a lot of information by being here that will help me strengthen my foundation.
Good.
That's awesome. Love that.
Good. No, that's wonderful. I love hearing that. Absolutely love hearing that. I know, and there's nobody here moving bulk.
No.
No.
I think you and I talked about this a little bit earlier.
Yes.
I talked to some other folks. So typically the broker carrier summit's been focused on the big three, right? So your drive in, your reefer, and your open deck. And so certainly there is a desire to understand more, educate, and bring in the bulk, the hot shot, the niche type of freight movement. And one of the big things with that is making sure we have the right partners fast. So starting at the driver level where there's now interest. So for those, the brokers or those that may move this type of freight, there is an appetite and an opportunity for you here. And to be fair, if any other more traditional brokerages are looking at this is how you educate your people. I was very lucky the first time I moved bulk. We talked about this earlier, Stephen, that
Yes.
I did it. I had no clue what I was doing. And thankfully, a driver kicked me to a lot of game when I called him up and tried to sell him a load. It wasn't the right fit for him and his business, but he helped me understand what it was going to take to actually move that freight. Not everyone has that opportunity. This is a venue and an opportunity for you as carriers and for those as brokers to educate yourself so that when you're talking to a driver, somebody who's been pulling tanks for 23 years, you don't want to talk to somebody who says, yep, pick in Dallas, deliver in Maryland, and 43,000 pounds or whatever it may be, because they have no idea what they're talking about.
Right.
And so that's ultimately the goal of the BCS, is to educate people and make those business transactions a lot more seamless.
Correct.
So that's why I'm so glad you're here, man. It's been awesome.
And I'm glad I took the time out to come.
Sure.
Who knows? Tomorrow's not promised.
Amen to that, man.
Right.
So take advantage of what is available for you today, because it may not be there tomorrow.
Yep. And I think that, not to get heavy, but I mean, I think obviously everything that happened with Brittany Trailer over the last week or so, and the tributes, which have been beautiful. I think that's a great reminder that hug your loved ones, take advantage of opportunities, and chase your dreams, because that's what she did.
Yeah, because my fiance and my kids, they all know, they may come a day that I may not come back home.
Right.
And they need to understand that. I got things set in place. If this happens, you do this, you do that, blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
However, tomorrow's not promised. The next hour is not promised. I'm going to leave this summer to go pick up a load. Who's to say I'm going to make it to the load? It's not guaranteed.
Well, we pray that you do. Be very, very clear on that.
I do too. But you gotta be real with yourself.
Well, we just had a friend pass away here who didn't make it to the load.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yep.
And my condolences.
Her picture's right up here at the table. So
I did, yes, I did. Her, what's her name again?
Brittany.
Yes, I saw that. Yes.
And for those that are here or have seen any of the signage, all the signage was designed by Brittany. Here at the Broker Carrier Summit. She had talked about it at Fort Worth. She has a background or had a background in design. And so she actually made all these signs and the designs for them. And the ones that are back here behind us, like this setup is all up to her, which was
I had forgotten that
amazing.
When I texted you and I saw DeSante's thing, I didn't even think that had happened. I completely forgot that she was that involved.
Yep.
Well, first and foremost, I want to give my deepest condolences to the family.
Yep.
I want to give my condolences to BCS because of your loss. And I'm sorry to hear that. And,
yeah, appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
That's at least that's the least I can do.
Yeah, that's and it's a fellow driver. And we always respect that too. So
pull the horns.
Yeah. Which there's got to be a button there.
I'm not. Nope.
So, so Adam Chase put in a question, and this is to the brokers, but pilot car owner here, or operator here, oversized loads continues to ask me for lower prices, lower than last. You can hang out if you want.
I'm good. Well, I got work to do. So I got work to do. I gotta go. I'm committed. So, but I said after lunch. But I was recommended to come say something. And
well, appreciate that.
I did what I needed to do.
Yes, sir.
And I appreciate y'all allowing me to do that.
Thank you,
appreciate
Steven.
that.
Thanks for what you do, man.
We're gonna answer this question, and I would love it if you field in on this one. 'Cause
Yep.
You're probably the most recent operator.
Yep.
I'm pretty far removed.
It's been a minute.
And for you, it's been a minute. For me, it's been over a decade. So, but pilot car owner operator here, oversized loads continue to ask me for lower prices, lower than last year. Even though the prices for everything are up across the board, profit margins are already razor thin. I'm trying to convince these customers that I can't afford to run with prices any lower than last year. How can I assure them that my price is right? Being brokers, if you have advice for me, thank you.
Bully them. I'm kidding.
Know your information, your specifics, and talk about the specifics. The biggest issue in transportation is the rate negotiation, and the expectations on both sides, and a lack of understanding of what is driving the cost or the price on both sides of the equation. And so you can trace all that back to the volatility in a shipper's demand, and the lack of consistency in freight movement. And so if we go through the RFP routing guide process, the way that they often build the load level expectations or load volume expectations are an average across the entire year. And so that ebbs and flows throughout the year. They expect you, I always say, they expect you to build the church for Easter, right? And they expect you to reach and manage those expectations of freight volume, but you're not getting 100% of them all the time. So you have to spread your capacity into multiple customers, which in turn, when they all send 100%, something's got to give and fall.
Right.
So you push that forward into the rate and pricing, and the market then unfortunately drives in one-way transportation the rate in the pressures that are happening from a market perspective. And so the procurement leaders at the shipper are facing the pressures of their economic and financial organization that sees the market transitioning. And while they might want to do what's best for the relationship, they have this competing pressure with that. And so if you can come in and explain the costs in your cost structure and what's driving that, whether it's insurance, maintenance, and how much insurance and the specific numbers as to how much those have increased and how that's impacting your bottom line, and equip the person you have the relationship with the information to educate their organization on these driving costs and what's the benefit of the future relationship. And so I think that's at the heart of it, is getting deeper in the conversation and having open dialogue around that and figuring out how you can work together.
And one thing I want to point out on that too is you mentioned specifically is an oversized
pilot car.
So with that, would you have, that there is market for that. However, it is not necessarily the traditional market of it. Traditional market prices are usually based around van rates. And then you've got your reefer, you have your open deck. So when you get into these niche markets, there's another piece you need to layer into that education is the data you may see. It says, oh, Chicago to California to LA is $1.34 a mile or plus fuel. Yes, but not necessarily for this type of movement. And so now that they aren't aware of that, but it's building that into the education process, again, because this, much like you would get a specialty plumber who you're not paying for, the 15 minutes he taps the pipe, you're paying for the 30 years he learned where to tap the pipe.
Right.
This is very similar to that.
Yeah. So I think to kind of cap the answer, Todd, understanding your costs, understanding your potential pricing, but then you still have to have that relationship. And if that customer doesn't care about the relationship, it's all about your cost. And if it's going to be a race to the bottom on the price, then that's exactly what it is. And you have to, being a small operator, you have to be able to have relationship-based customers. And if you do not, you need to go find them.
Yep.
You absolutely have to go find them. If you're going to have the cheapest customers around, you are going to struggle.
Yep.
And to help with finding those customers, those direct relationships, highly recommend connect with, follow Adam Wingfield. He's a great resource for that.
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right. Well, appreciate you coming on. Where can people find you?
Yeah. LinkedIn is a great place. Email is toddwaldron@truckstop.com. And go check out truckstop.com for more information. And that's probably the best.
Awesome.
So I appreciate you guys having me.
Perfect. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Well, we're wrapping up.
We done?
I think we're done.
All right.
So that's probably the longest run we've ever done.
It's if it's not, it's always a BCS. It is the longest.
We ran out of mics. Otherwise, it would have been a we've ever done. But, you got to go have lunch.
I did.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You missed literally nothing.
Yeah. Oh, well, fair enough.
Yeah.
I would have been happy to do nothing. So
fair.
All right. Well, stay curious, stay informed, keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Until next time, drive forward with purpose and innovation. Thanks for watching.